Welcome back to the Freak Show, fellow freaks.
Season 4. I am Matthew Brockmeyer.
And I'm Christa Carmen.
And this is...
Murder Coaster.
We're back, and today we bring you one of the most bizarre and gruesome tales from the heyday of American crime. A devil-worshipping cult of cannibalistic, necrophiliac serial killers that may or may not have a direct link to none other than the killer clown, John Wayne Gacy. A sadistic gang of extreme sexual deviants, like something from a nightmare or horror movie, who roam the streets of Chicago in a death van, snatching completely random victims. Black, white, Asian, Latino, sometimes attacking sex workers, sometimes just random women, even targeting men. Using guns, knives, hammers, homemade axes, and piano wire. Beheading, dismembering, disemboweling, gouging out hearts and lungs, skinning alive, and nearly always sexually mutilating. Prepare yourselves for the story of the horrible, cold-blooded, and terrifying Robin Gecht and his Chicago Ripper crew. Listener discretion is advised.
Let's begin. Prologue. Carnage and death in the Windy City. There were over 770 murders in Chicago in 1982, not to mention a flurry of poisonings from cyanide-laced Tylenol. So at first detectives didn't realize the murders, mutilations, and disappearances were connected, as police were simply overburdened. There was too much carnage and death to keep up with, try as they might. But then came a big break that tied it all together, and would bring down the group that would become known to the world as the Chicago Ripper Crew.
On October 5th, 1982, a homeless man was wandering the alleys of North Maplewood, combing the dumpsters for recyclables, when he stumbled upon the naked body of a battered and mutilated woman, drenched in blood, a woman he assumed was dead.
Her left breast had been crudely amputated, and her ribcage glimmered within the wound. Her right breast had nearly been severed, attached only by a few shreds of tissue. But the woman, Denise Gardner, was alive, and after being hospitalized, was able to describe the person who'd assaulted her and the vehicle he drove.
Denise described to detectives a short man with lank, greasy brown hair and a mustache, in jeans and a flannel shirt, wearing distinctive square-toed boots with zippers on the side, driving a red van with tinted windows, a wooden door separating the front and back, a roach clip hanging from the rearview mirror with 2 feathers dangling from it, one blue, one white.
Police throughout Chicago were ordered to be on the lookout for a red van fitting the description. And 2 weeks later, officers pulled one over fitting the exact specifications. Wooden door, roach clip on the rearview mirror with 2 feathers, one blue, one white. But the driver did not match the description the suspect gave.
The driver, one Eddie Spreitzer, had very curly, bright red hair, was average height, and had no mustache. But, as Eddie explained to them, he was not the owner of the van. He just worked for him. The owner, whom Eddie brought them right to, was one Robin Gecht, who matched the description perfectly, right down to the square-toed boots with zippers on the side.
They were both taken in for questioning. Robin would deny everything, and to this day still denies the allegations against him. But though it took a while, Eddie would eventually crack and begin to tell horrible stories of murder and sexual mutilation. How he was part of a crew that abducted women from the streets to torture, rape, and kill, using knives, razors, tin cans, and piano wire to cut their breasts off and have sex with their gaping wounds.
Eddie also implicated two brothers as being part of this crew, Tommy and Andrew Kolokouris. And when Tommy was brought in for questioning, he too would confess to it all, telling of 17 murders and adding bizarre details, saying they were a cult of cannibalistic devil worshippers that saved the breasts of their victims for black masses, holding candlelit rituals in a, quote, satanic chapel in Robin's attic, where they'd invoke the power of Lucifer as they each masturbated into a severed breast before consuming it in a mockery of the Eucharist.
You literally just made me gag. I don't think that's ever happened on the show before, but I gagged. According to Tommy, the leader of this satanic cannibal murder cult was Robin Gecht, a Chicago-style Charlie Manson, who kept a harem of runaway teenage girls, whose deviancy knew no bounds, and who held supernatural power over the Ripper crew, telling detectives, and this is a direct quote,
"He looks into your eyes, and he tells you to do something, and you just have to do it. You be real careful when you talk to him, detective. Don't you look into his eyes, or he'll get to you, too."
Chapter 1. Little Robin. Robin Gecht was born on November 30th, 1953, at the Illinois Masonic Hospital in northwest Chicago, to parents Jacob Gecht and his girlfriend Ruth, who, though they long remained a couple, would never marry.
Robin, Jacob, and Ruth lived with Jacob's parents, Reuben and Sarah, who raised little Robin, while his father Jacob worked long hours at a drugstore, and his mother Ruth worked as a waitress.
As a toddler, little Robin loved helping his grandfather water the lawn and fix things in the house, and he remembers his grandmother being very sweet and caring, telling him, "You are my first grandchild. That makes you special."
When Robin was 3, his parents had another child, a brother named Everett, and when he was 5, a sister named Rachel was born.
But with baby Rachel, the house was now too small to fit them all comfortably, and Robin was forced to sleep on the floor, with his beloved grandparents now busy raising his younger siblings, and Robin was left on his own and became lonely and withdrawn.
When Robin was 6, he was walking to the store with his mother and his younger siblings, and his mother asked him to watch little Everett, only 3, while she went into the store with baby Rachel.
Robin sat on the street corner with his toddler brother, patiently waiting for his mother, but then got distracted looking at toys in a department store window, and his brother wandered out into the street, where he was struck by a car.
Little Everett lived, but suffered serious brain damage and had to be institutionalized. Robin claims he would always feel guilty over this tragedy.
In 1961, the extended family, grandparents and all, moved to a slightly larger house on the northwest side of Chicago, and Robin's mother had another child, Julia.
Now Robin was forced to stay home after school to care for his younger siblings, which he grew to resent. And he was always in trouble at school. He was short and scrawny, and he couldn't afford decent clothes, so he was always dressed shabbily, which made him a target for bullies. Plus, he had learning issues, was in remedial reading classes.
The family was Jewish, and though they didn't go to synagogue or even observe Jewish holidays at all, they were not allowed to participate in Christian holidays. No Christmas tree or caroling, no Easter baskets. And when kids bragged about their Christmas gifts, Robin was forced to admit he didn't get any, as his family didn't celebrate the holiday, which further made him an object of ridicule.
Now, when I was a little kid, my Jewish friends made Hanukkah sound way cooler than Christmas because it lasted for 8 days. And some of them would even get presents for 8 days straight. But Robin's family didn't celebrate anything, which must have made for a miserable winter. You know, before kids, my wife and I would celebrate Yule or the solstice and kind of boycott Christmas itself. I mean, we have a tree and stuff, but we made it as pagan as possible. But when you get little kids, you know, they all want to fit in, so we had to go the Christmas route. And Santa Claus is fun, though we never tried to convince them that it was real. My son never really believed, but my daughter wanted to believe, so we just let her. How about you? You do Santa Claus is real, or?
My daughter thinks everything is real. We're gonna have a big problem. She thinks it's actually amazing. She thinks everything magical. She thinks there's magic in everything. So Santa's real, but we also celebrate like the pagan holidays just for fun as well. We kind of do a little bit of everything.
Tooth Fairy and all that.
Yeah.
Where did that come from, the Tooth Fairy? That's a pretty cool one.
I don't know, but interestingly, some of my daughter's favorite spooky stories are all about the Tooth Fairy. So I think she's already picking up on like the fact that it's pretty creepy that the Tooth Fairy comes and plucks your, discarded bones out from beneath your pillow.
You ever see that South Park?
I don't think so, but I've heard people reference it before. I need to check it out.
He's like going and digging up corpses and taking their teeth so he can get money off of it.
That's amazing.
It's hilarious, yeah.
For any listeners with kids that like the spooky stuff, The Doll in the Hall and Other Scary Stories is a really fun illustrated book, and it's that series that the creepy Tooth Fairy story is in.
Nice.
Anyhow, in January of 1964, when Robin was 11, they had yet another child, their fifth, another girl named Joanne. And at the same time, Robin's beloved grandmother was hospitalized with stomach cancer, and his father became incredibly sick with a blood ailment and also had to be hospitalized. Everything became chaos, his mother working as a waitress, trying to support all of them and pay medical bills, and Robin had to take care of the new baby, missing weeks of school at a time. And in March, his grandmother died.
When his father came back from the hospital, he was too sick to work and was deeply depressed, devastated by the loss of his mother. It was just really tough times. And Robin broke bad. He was stealing, fighting, starting fires, which is something we see with many budding serial killers.
Robin ended up being sent to a school for troubled juveniles called Montefiore, a tough, no-nonsense place. And he continued to get into fights and eventually just refused to go back, landing him in juvenile court, where he was ordered to live in a facility for intransigent youths called the Parental School. He wouldn't see his family again for 8 months, and during that time his grandfather died. His aunt Alice, utterly distraught by the loss of her parents, then committed suicide.
It was a bad scene, man. And Robin, now 15, continued getting into trouble, landing back in juvenile court being issued a stern warning by the judge.
But during this time, around 1968, Robin discovered something he was good at. He'd always enjoyed helping his grandfather fix things around the house, so using his deceased grandfather's tools, he set up a workshop fixing household appliances, in particular televisions, sometimes completely rewiring them. And when word spread through the neighborhood that the Gecht boy could fix your broken TV, he started getting a lot of work. And he took pride in that.
And he found solace in old-time rock and roll, particularly Elvis Presley, whom he adored. He loved Elvis, constantly listening to the king of rock and roll, starting an Elvis record collection.
Robin dropped out of high school, and when his parents moved to North Spalding, Robin moved in with an old family friend named Thomas Farley, who'd once been their neighbor. When he was 18 and working on his GED, he met a girl named Judy Carson and had a child with her. But she soon broke up with him, saying she'd found a new boyfriend, and just 6 months later, she sent him an invitation to her wedding. He did not attend.
Ouch. He was caught by a city inspector doing electrical work without a license, fined $200, and then he started working full-time at an auto repair shop.
After a falling out with his roommate, he moved back in with his parents, but got in a fistfight with his father, who kicked him out onto the street.
At this point, he was seeing another girl, Sarah Gibson. Although he was short and scrawny, he was only 5'7" and 125 pounds. And incredibly mean. He's really mean. But girls liked him. They really liked him, and he always had multiple girlfriends. He somehow charmed them. Something that would later have him compared to Charlie Manson. This ability to constantly attract very young girls. And so Sarah invited him to move in with her and her divorced mother. And Sarah's mother, well, she liked him so much that she actually co-signed a car loan for him. He was quite the charmer.
But Robin was cheating on Sarah, seeing other women, and Sarah grew jealous, and they got into wicked fights, and he eventually moved out and into his Uncle Roger's place.
Robin and Uncle Roger, they got along really well. They did home repair work together, and Robin started saving up to start his own electrical repair business.
Robin was becoming more and more obsessed with Elvis Presley. He collected Elvis memorabilia, cups, posters, rare records, and these things were off limits to anyone but himself. No one was ever allowed to touch his Elvis belongings. They were his and his alone. Once he was asked if he believed in God, and he said he only believed in two things: himself and Elvis.
There was only one thing he was more obsessed with than Elvis Presley. That was women's breasts.
Chapter 2. Rosemary.
In 1975, when Robin was 22, he met the love of his life, Rosemary McCaffrey, who just turned 17, and immediately the sparks were flying.
Rosemary, like Robin, was a bit of a troublemaker, and she was estranged from her family and living with friends.
It was a whirlwind Chicago romance, and soon Rosemary was pregnant. And on August 23rd, 1975, the two young lovebirds were married at City Hall. And on January 31st, 1976, their first child, a daughter, was born.
But all was not happiness and marital bliss, because Robin, again like Charlie Manson, became a Pied Piper for troubled teenage girls, constantly bringing them home with him, partying with them all night. They'd be calling the house at all hours and showing up looking for a place to party and crash. There was just a constant stream of runaway girls in the house.
And it wasn't all peace and love and groovy good times. No, no, no. At one point, Robin was accused of raping a 15-year-old girl at gunpoint in his own daughter's bed. A crime he was arrested for, but eventually the charges were dropped when the traumatized girl refused to testify. Rosemary would later say that when she went to change the sheets and clean the bed afterwards, it was streaked with blood.
Robin's obsession with breasts became darker and darker. He began to poke Rosemary's breasts with pins, was fixated on her nipples, wanted to slice them off to see how the insides worked, how the milk flowed, claiming prostitutes on the street had let him cut their breasts open and slice off their nipples, so she should do it as well.
Yeah, I doubt that happened. Eventually, Robin himself would say about his obsession with breasts, quote, "Hey, it's a thing my entire family, going back, as I'm told, to my great-grandfather. Each of us men have married large-breasted women. My wife was a 39D, and yes, she was very satisfying to me."
He also claimed to have read stories about, quote, uncultured civilization. Wow, Jesus fucking Christ. Quote, uncultured civilizations, end quote, using breasts as bags. Primitive tribes that cut the breasts off women, tanned them, and used them to carry things with.
There's some real Ed Gein shit there, and I looked into this, and I can find nothing about any ancient civilizations or tribal people ever doing this. It seems like pure fantasy from a very sick mind. And he began finding unscrupulous doctors to prescribe him prescriptions to various pills. One girlfriend stating, quote,
He always had a lot of pills, all kinds of pills, anything you ever heard of and lots more. Pills that I didn't even know the name of. We would just drive to this drugstore over by the lake, and he would come out with as many pills as he wanted. He was always testing me with the pills, like, take 2 of these and 1 of these, you know, to see what was going to happen. One time he gave me some pills and I was knocked out for about 3 days. When I woke up, I just knew that something strange had happened to me.
Damn, it's creepy as hell. And Robin got his hands on a few rifles and a handgun that he liked to keep laying about. And he kept a bowl of handcuffs on the kitchen counter. And he absolutely loved slasher films, his favorite movie being The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which also happens to be one of my favorite films as well. And honestly, I'm kind of surprised he liked it so much because it's not really that bloody or gory, and there's no breaths in it. Thought he'd be more of a slumber party massacre guy with lots of titties and gore.
Yeah, bit inconsistent there.
Yeah.
Robin also began doing strange things in the attic, saying no one was allowed to go up there. And he'd barricade it with plywood, making it impossible to get into.
Robin bought a red 1974 Dodge van, which he set to customizing. And he loved to have sex in his van while listening to Elvis. Sex in the van just really turned him on. But hey, it was the late 1970s, and you know what they say. How many creepy 70s guys does it take to screw in a light bulb?
How many?
Creepy 70s guys don't screw in light bulbs. They screw in the back of creepy vans.
And Robin's neighbors, who said he seemed like a nice, friendly guy, would all comment on the care he gave his van, always scrubbing it clean inside and out, often replacing the carpet inside it.
Yeah, replacing the carpeting inside the van all the time. Robin would use the van to entice teenage girls to come party with him, and also as a place to have sex with prostitutes. Eventually, it would become a mobile torture chamber and death mobile.
Chapter 3. The Killer Clown.
Now we have to address a rumor that is often stated as fact, that Robin, being an electrician and handyman in Chicago, worked for a contractor who was none other than the killer clown, notorious serial killer, John Wayne Gacy.
Okay, so the rumor is that Gacy picked Robin up hitchhiking and offered him a job, which sounds plausible, as Robin was exactly Gacy's type. Young, scrawny, slightly effeminate, looking for construction work. And it's often claimed that Robin was put on the witness list for Gacy's trial, but that he was never called to the stand.
But if you do a little research, you'll see there's absolutely no proof to this assertion at all, and authorities have never confirmed any connection.
As for Robin, he denies it vehemently, saying the rumor was just internet bullshit meant to grab attention and get clicks. But in a bizarre twist to it all, one of the Ripper crew did eventually become cellmates with John Wayne Gacy, something we'll get to.
I personally think if Robin Gecht was picked up hitchhiking by John Wayne Gacy, he would have been shown the old handcuff trick and ended up buried there in the crawl space.
As a stream of teenage girls moved through the house and Robin became more sadistic and violent, Rosemary threatened to divorce him over and over. But eventually she just learned to live with his despicable ways and to give in to his sick fetishes. They had 2 more children, another daughter and a son.
One of the many girls that Robin was seeing was named Tina.
Robin would tell Tina she was his special girl, that he was going to leave Rosemary for her, and that she was the only one who meant anything to him. Something I'm sure he told many of his girlfriends, love bombing and gaslighting, a master manipulator.
Robin even had a child with Tina on April 3rd, 1981. And oddly, Tina and Robin's wife, Rosemary, eventually became friends of sorts. A bond formed between the two as they were both victims and survivors of Robin's sadism. Tina would later say to the police, quote,
"One time I went by Robin's house and Robin's wife Rosemary came out. I told her she didn't look too good. She was pale and sweaty and sick looking. She took me inside and she lifted her blouse. She had 6 pins, like hat pins, stuck in her breast. She said Robin wouldn't let her take it out. She told me they bled a lot and Robin would inject her with Novocaine so it wouldn't hurt so bad."
It's fucking crazy, man. And Tina, too, was a victim to Robin's disturbing breast fetish, saying when they had sex in the van, he'd attack her breast with stick pins, and that he'd once poured lighter fluid on her chest and set it on fire, and that he tied her up and looped rope around one of her breasts and tightened it until she was in incredible pain. Eventually, she'd even show investigators the scars on her from Robin's sick fetish.
Tina told authorities many very disturbing stories about Robin. She said that Rosemary told her that Robin had made her bring her parents' large white dog to the house, and that Robin would have sex with the dog in the living room. She even showed her a pair of Robin's underwear coated in white dog hair.
It gets worse. The dog was pregnant, and when it went into labor, Robin dragged it down into the basement, beat the poor animal to death with a baseball bat, then cut the dog open, removed the puppies, and put them in jars of alcohol, keeping them there on a shelf in the basement.
That is so fucking disgusting. Tina said Robin made his own weapons, which he called his tools, including a long pin attached to the end of a broomstick that he'd chase her with, and an axe made from a stick and a sharp piece of triangular glass. She claimed he was obsessed with graveyards and told her the best way to get rid of a body was to put it in a freshly dug grave the day before the funeral.
When asked why she didn't leave him, Tina said he had magical power, that he was able to control her and to know exactly where she was, saying, quote,
I left him lots of times, but he always found me no matter where I went or what I did to get away. The last time I did it, he came and found me, and he said he'd kill me if I ever tried to leave him again. He would have, too. He always took little things from my apartment. He took a gold chain once, and a notebook, sometimes a photograph. If I would ask him about it, he'd just laugh, real mean and spooky. He was using those things to control me.
Chapter 4. The Ripper Crew.
Around 1978, Robin befriended two teenage boys in the neighborhood, the Kolokouris brothers, Andy, who would have been 16, and Tommy, who would have been 18, having them babysit for him and giving them odd jobs.
Andy and Tommy were sad and troubled kids. Their mother had died 5 years earlier, and their Greek Orthodox father was incredibly strict and cruel. He'd punish them by tying them shirtless to a table and lash them with a belt.
The Kolokouris brothers were lonely and abused and longing for some sort of family and understanding, and Robin Gecht, who was much older than them, filled that void, becoming a father figure to them.
A girlfriend of Andy's would later say that Andy was very timid sexually and could rarely perform an actual sex act, and instead, all he wanted was to have his face held tightly against her breasts while she cuddled him. An obvious need for a surrogate mother.
And Tommy was borderline mentally impaired with an IQ of just 77. Robin was bisexual, and it's been insinuated by many, including Rosemary's own brother, Thomas McCaffrey, that Robin had a sexual relationship with both Andy and Tommy.
Andy and Tommy had a younger sister named Elizabeth, who also spent a lot of time at the Gecht house. As we've said, Robin had this whole network of neighborhood teenagers and runaways, like a complicated spider web of 70s juvenile delinquents.
Just to demonstrate this network of runways Robin had, we'll tell the story of 15-year-old Lisa Miller.
So Lisa had been best friends with Elizabeth Kolokouris and ended up dating Andy. So Lisa and Elizabeth decided to run away. And where do teenage runaway girls go to? To Robin's house, of course.
When Lisa didn't come home, her mother was frantic, wondering where her daughter was. So she called Mr. Kolokouris, as Lisa was best friends with his daughter.
Mr. Kolokouris knew the score and told her Lisa was probably with Elizabeth at Robin Gecht's house. So when Robin gets wind that Lisa's mother was looking for her, he boldly called her himself and said he would help her to find her daughter.
Immediately, Lisa's mother didn't trust Robin. She thought he was up to no good and knew where Lisa was but wasn't telling.
Lisa's mother also said he would do this weird thing with his eyes, fix you with his gaze, like he was trying to hypnotize you. As she says in her own words,
he had a way of looking deep into your eyes while he talked on, and it just hypnotized you, made you believe anything he said. I knew he had my Lisa, or he knew where she was, and yet I'd been falling under his spell. I hated this man.
Well, Robin took Lisa's mother to an apartment where Andy was staying with some other teenagers, and they all said they did not know where Lisa could possibly be.
Lisa's mother then went and talked to another neighborhood girl, asking her about Robin, and that girl told her, "He's evil. That's all I can say about it. But please listen to me, and please believe what I'm telling you. That man is evil, and you better get your daughter away from him while you can."
Now, in a full-on panic, Lisa's mother contacted the police. And when Robin called her the next time, he wasn't so nice and cordial, telling her, "Get the cops off my back."
She told him, "Not until I get my daughter."
And it worked. Robin went and told Lisa she had to leave, that he didn't want to be dealing with the cops.
Lisa would later talk to the police, telling them how Robin had this near mythological status among the teenage runaways who flocked to his house. But tell them, as for herself, quote, "I was actually kind of disappointed the first time I met Robin Gecht. I was expecting this really awesome dude. Instead, he just seemed like some kind of creepy little weasel."
So Elizabeth Kolokouris had dated this guy, Eddie Spritzer, a 17-year-old redhead that apparently had a lot of deep-seated issues, who described himself by saying, quote, "I was just different. I was different to a lot of different people."
A guy who knew Eddie in high school claims that Eddie showed up at prom with blood all over his mouth, bragging that he'd been slaughtering animals in the woods for rituals and drinking their blood.
Yeah, a bit of a red flag there. Eddie had been working in an auto parts store, but was fired for God knows what, and was looking for work. So Elizabeth hooked him up with Robin, who often hired neighborhood kids to help his little construction business, not unlike that old killer clown.
So now Robin, Andy, Tommy, and Eddie were a little crew, driving around in the work van, listening to Elvis Presley, doing odd jobs, partying, often hanging out at the Rip Van Winkle Hotel, a sleazy, run-down hovel on the North Avenue Strip, where prostitutes took their johns and junkies went to get their fixes. And Robin, who loved horror movies and creepy shit, and is obsessed with black magic, forms this little cult with these teenage simpletons.
Robin's got a copy of the Satanic Bible, which I doubt he ever read. Probably just waved it around, trying to look edgy and cool. And as we said on other episodes, in particular our series on Richard Ramirez, the Church of Satan does not condone murder and rape. But again, like Charlie Manson, and you'll have to excuse us for these constant comparisons, but there's a reason they call Robin Gecht the Chicago Manson. Anyway, Robin uses these bizarre rituals to bind these teenagers to him so that they'll do whatever he asks without question. He's using the whole satanic cult thing as a power trip, a means of gaining their loyalty.
The owner of the Rip Van Winkle Hotel, a place the locals called a hot pillow joint, says he was aware that they were performing occult rituals in the rooms they'd party in. And Tommy would say they also held rituals in Robin's attic, which he described as a, quote, satanic chapel.
I love hot pillow joint. I just gotta say, that's a cool. Eddie says at one point he went to Robin's house to find that Robin had cut Rosemary's nipples completely off and just left her there to bleed.
Jesus Christ. Horrified, Eddie took Rosemary to the hospital, but before he could talk to the police, Robin showed up and said he'd better be quiet because he could pin the crime on him, as he had photographs of Eddie having sex with Rosemary. Although Eddie claims that the most intimate he'd ever been with Rosemary was rubbing suntan lotion on her breasts while she was sunbathing topless.
It's all weird. It's all bad. And it's really kind of confusing. But one thing to remember is that by all accounts, Eddie Spreitzer was dumb as a rock. They all were. They were dumb, they were mean, they were sadistic, and ruthless. A deadly combination.
Meanwhile, Robin began customizing his red Dodge work van to turn it into a murder and torture chamber, putting in a plywood wall that separated the front from the back, rigging the doors so that they wouldn't open, outfitting it with ropes and handcuffs and his homemade weapons.
The crew began practicing for eventual assaults, working out a plan on how to abduct women and kill them.
They decided to start with African American sex workers, presumably because they knew these deaths would be the least investigated. Sadly, these women are often seen by law enforcement, especially back in the late 70s and 80s, as the less dead, and little resources were put into solving their murders.
The plan was Eddie, Andy, and Tommy would hide in the back of the van as Robin cruised the streets and propositioned a potential victim. Once a victim was in the death van, where the doors were rigged to not unlock or open, Robin would make 2 loud tapping noises, and that was the signal for the rest of the crew to spring, throwing open the wooden door, grabbing the woman and dragging her into the back of the van, where they would handcuff and gag her. They had it all worked out.
Chapter 5. The murders begin.
According to Eddie, the first murder the Ripper crew committed was of an unknown sex worker whose body has never been found to this day.
Eddie says they picked her up, and once they got her in the van, they blindfolded and gagged her, and then Robin shot her in the head, and then somehow chained bowling balls to her and dumped her into the water somewhere.
And whether or not this murder even happened, we don't know. Eddie could have been making it up in an effort to please investigators. Nearly all the information we have regarding this case is from the confessions of Eddie, Tommy, and Andy. And as we said in the beginning, to this day, the ringleader of the gang, Robin Gecht, he denies everything. But there's no denying what happened to Linda Sutton, the first confirmed victim, on May 23rd, 1981.
Linda Sutton was a very beautiful mother of two, 21 years old with large almond-shaped eyes, high cheekbones, a sly smile, and a baby doll face, who made her way as a sex worker, and was cruising the streets outside Wrigley Field when Robin and Andy pulled the van over and negotiated a price with her for a date.
It was a warm spring night, stars glimmering overhead as Linda hopped into the death van, and Robin drove them all out to his old North Avenue hangout, the Rip Van Winkle Hotel, where Eddie was waiting for them.
One can only imagine what an awkward, weird ride it was. And by the time they got to the hotel and Eddie suddenly appeared, Linda, realizing something was seriously amiss with these strange characters, refused to get out of the van. So Robin had Andy and Eddie hold her down while he repeatedly slammed his fist into her face, subduing her.
They then handcuffed and gagged the pretty woman, then dragged her out of the van. But they didn't take her into the motel. Instead, they hauled her out to a trash-strewn field out back, where Robin ripped her pants off, pulled up her sweater, and raped her while Eddie held her down.
When he was finished, Robin retrieved his handmade axe, the broom handle he'd secured a jagged, triangular piece of glass to, raising it up over his head and slamming it down into Linda's chest over and over and over.
Then Robin took a length of piano wire, wrapped it tightly around Linda's left breast, pulling it tighter and tighter till the sharp wire began to slice into her flesh, and tighter still until her breast had been completely amputated, leaving a gaping, bloody hole.
They left the battered and mutilated body of this mother of two there amongst the weeds and refuse in the field behind the sleazy motel. But Robin kept her breast, a sick trophy, and according to Tommy, a magical amulet they'd later use in bizarre sex rituals.
The body lay there for 3 days before a motel housekeeper noticed the horrendous smell and law enforcement was called in.
Because of the large wounds from the axe and her severed breast, which allowed bacteria, parasites, and maggots to easily and quickly enter the body, coupled with the warm spring weather, which speeded decomposition, the corpse had rotted down to practically a skeleton, and investigators originally believed she'd been there for weeks.
Her arms were still bound in cheap handcuffs, a broken key in the lock, a strip of cloth stuffed in her mouth, and in her socks, which were still on her feet, investigators discovered $13, which led them to believe she was a sex worker, as it was common for them to hide their money in their socks.
Eventually, Linda Sutton would be identified by dental records and fingerprints, and an autopsy would reveal she'd only been there for a few days.
Often after their first murders, serial killers will go into an extensive cooling-off period, sometimes for months, often for years, paranoid and reeling from their heinous actions, satisfied with just reliving the murder in their minds, until the urge to kill again becomes overwhelming. But the Ripper crew, they wasted no time in going to their next victim, leading many to speculate that Robin Gecht had been killing on his own long before his demented cult.
Regardless, the Ripper crew was just getting started, and their horrible spree of murder and mutilation was just going to grow more depraved and disturbing.
But to hear about that and how this horrible cult of murderers were eventually brought to justice, You'll have to tune in next week for the conclusion of our story on Robin Gecht and the Chicago Ripper crew.
Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.
And you have a story you'd like us to cover, let us know, and just contact us for anything at all, even if you just want to say hi, at murdercoasterpodcast@gmail.com. That's murdercoasterpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening. We will see you next week.
Bye-bye.